Workers all over the world are facing challenges that put to question the relevance of trade unions. The Bureau for Workers' Activities ACTRAV, which is the main link between the International Labour Organization ILO, Labour Office and World of Work, in its Central Declaration for the Future of Work, identified 4 drivers that impact the world of work. These are globalization, demographic, environmental, and technological changes. These drivers, the Bureau says, affect labor markets of today and tomorrow. And with that, the future of trade unions, the potential of organizing and servicing workers' needs, ability to speak with one voice and participate in inclusive and effective social dialogue. Our conversation again would be on trade unionism, but this time it will be on workers' welfare. Our guest is standing by on Zoom, Comrade Igbokwe Chukwuma Igbokwe, Deputy Secretary General, Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria. You're welcome to Signature Evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
I think we will start by understanding the concept of trade unionism. Let our viewer have a feel of what it's like.
Well, trade unionism is a movement. It's a movement that started far back in the 18th century during the era of using workers to work. And at a stage, we migrated to the use of machine. And because of the use of machine, there was this fear that the machine would take over the work of workers. And before then, workers were used more or less as a slave or as slaves, because then there were no working hours specified. Workers work all around the clock. All is to use them and engineer production. But when at a stage workers begin to form a group to speak, to have a voice in order to protest the inhuman treatment meted on them by the capitalists, that is what gave room to trade unionism in Nigeria. In the whole world, not even in Nigeria. In the 18th century, we had in America, we had the struggle that established trade unionism and gave rise to Workers' Day, and then established also the 8 hours of work for workers in the whole world, which was also domesticated in Nigeria in the 1990s, where trade union was formed as a voice for workers to protest the inhuman treatment of the capitalists. Let me put it that way. So that is all about trade unionism, emergence of trade unionism, and the organization of trade unionism. So it is a movement, actually.
Clarity. Can you mention some of the organizations that are trade unions in Nigeria?
That's a very long task, because if I start mentioning it, I don't think we'll finish it before before the end of this program. But start with trade unionism started with Nigerian Civil Service Union. Then trade unionism was seen as an organization of workers. In those days, in the era of colonial era, senior civil servants were seen as the whites. So then we had mainly what we call African civil servants were regarded as junior workers or junior staff. Then you had the colonial master as the senior staff. And they were treating the workers, inhumanly. So in Nigeria, as at today, we have over 150 trade unions registered by the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, that's the current name, under the Registrar of Trade Union. In the public service, we have a lot of them. We have the Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria for work staff, senior civil servants on grade level 7 and above. We have the Nigerian Civil Service Union. We have the Medical and Health Workers Union for those operating in the health sector. We have the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives. We have the Nigerian Union of Teachers. We have the Nigerian Union of Railway Workers, and so on and so forth. We have in the gas sector or oil sector, we have the Pengasin, Petroleum and Gas Senior Staff Workers, Senior Staff of Nigeria. We have the NUPENG, and so many of them. We have over 150 registered and recognized trade union in Nigeria as present. So it's not what I can, mention all of them, but that are the specimen of what is trade union in Nigeria.
Let's continue. I will have to ask you this question before we go deeper into workers' welfare. And that is, I'd like you to let us know how trade unionism has fared in Nigeria from as far back as you can remember.
Well, in terms of fairness, I would say trade unions have not really fared well in terms of treatment, because to start with, workers formed trade unionism to have a voice in order to present to management their needs, and they're hoping to invite them or sit with them and address those needs. But as time goes on, government also saw the risk, or the employers, let me use the word employers, but when I mention employers, I'm talking of both government and the private sector employers, saw it as a risk, and also moved in to control the trade union and even legitimize it in terms of laws. And that led to the trade union in 1978, when the harmonization of the trade union took place. And at the end of the day, trade unions were recognized, and there are laws that say that what we call law of automatic check-off dues, restructuring of trade union took place in 1978. And we have what they call a law of automatic check-off. But because before now, trade unions were getting their funds even from outside the country, sponsorship. That the state government felt it was a threat, that if they continue to fund trade unions from outside the country, that means the international community, in quote, could determine or influence the activities of trade unions. So government now quickly restructured trade unions into about 52 then, and then brought out the law of automatic checkoff, which mandates an employer to recognize and deduct checkoff dues of trade unions or trade union members to where the law says they should belong to, and then remit such deduction to the office of the trade union. But in terms of welfare, trade union has fared well in terms of an entity of trade union, because they have always represented members, stood for their members, and tried to make relevant demands on how to better the life of their members. But in terms of faring well, because when you are referring to trade union, now you are referring to aggregate of the members of the trade union, not just trade union as a name, but aggregate of the workers that belong to trade union. That to say that workers have not really been treated well, because workers are partners in progress, number one. Workers are also the geese that lays the golden egg. That is to say that all the revenue generated by government and private sector establishments were generated by the workers of those establishments. And also, no matter the policy that government is putting on or coming up with, it has to be implemented by workers or staff of those organizations, whether it be public service or be it private sector, which means that you cannot run a system both at the public service and private sector without the workers. That means trade unions and workers, members of trade unions, are very relevant in the scheme of things. But in compensation, in appreciation, in treatment, the employer have not treated the members of trade union very well. They have always denied, there's always this denial, there's always this victimization, and there's always this exclusion, which has not recognized the impact of trade unionism. And particularly in the public service, government have not really seen trade unions as partners in progress, as partners of the project of the state and the project of the nation. That is why I say that in terms of recognition and treatment, trade unions has not been treated well. But in terms of mobilizing its members, ensuring quality services, and even supporting the government of the day to ensure that policies were implemented, trade union has done very well.
Comrade Igbokwe, you just mentioned that trade unions are, not looked out for properly. What would you say are some of the challenges trade unions face in Nigeria today?
Well, trade union is facing the same challenges Nigerian is facing now. Nigerian government or Nigerian economy is facing. Because in the political scene, Nigeria is having the problem of tribalism, sectionalism, religions, and so on. That has also penetrated the trade unions, where government is interfering with the activities of trade unions, where government is looking at a trade union activist or trade union leader in carrying out his duty, begin to rationalize it based on where he's coming from. For instance, if a chief executive of the state or even the nation is from a particular place, a particular region, different from where the trade union leader is from, and the trade union leader wants to, mobilize his members and make a demand, it is interpreted that such leader with the members are aligning with opposition in order, to sabotage the efforts of the government in power. That is one. The second challenges of trade union is inability of the employer to meet up with the demands of its members. Because trade union will always, cry out for the demands of the members, which ranges from arrears, for instance, the public service, arrears of promotion, arrears of salaries, arrears of so many allowances that they're entitled to. Because a worker is entitled to his wages. And what motivates a worker is give him his promotion at the right time, give him the remuneration at the right time, give him the required tools to carry out his task. And you will see him doing it at his best and bringing out positive results. But when all these factors are not in place, to a long extent, it hampers the performance of the worker, which in turn affect productivity, general productivity in the economy. So those are part of the challenges facing the trade union.
How can trade unions remain effective, remain relevant in an era of automated and remote work?
Well, one is that training is very key. That's why we cry all the time that both employer at private and public sector should continue to train the staff, because training is updating the staff on the current technology, current development, and the current way of carrying out functions. Once the employer is committed to training, Number one, the workers will be attuned to their duty. Workers will be attuned to the recent development, and workers will be attuned to the technological development. And that goes a long way to facilitate the work of a trade union. Two, trade union also remain relevant in the scheme of things when the trade union is structured in a way that the main issue is to pursue the interest of its members. One. Two, the interest of the members of trade union, when attended to, will impact positively on the economy of the country. It will impact positively on the economy of the state. It will impact positively on the economy or the production of the private sector. That is the fact that trade union has remained relevant by following religiously those guidelines and those rules that established it, and making sure, because if you watch now in the country, trade union appears to be the opposition in the country, because we don't have opposition party again. The job of the opposition of criticizing unfavorable policies of the government, everybody is rushing to a particular party because they want power, they want position. But for instance, when fuel price goes up, everybody is waiting for trade union to act. When taxation is high, everybody is waiting for trade union to act. When tariff is increased, everybody is waiting for trade union to act. The opposition government, those in the national or state assemblies that are supposed to raise this issue of concern, which is adversely affecting their constituencies, nobody is doing that again. Everybody is looking for viable parties of belonging and then getting position. That is left for trade union. And that's why trade union have been relevant. It is a general saying that when things are getting bad in the country, or when increases have been done and is affecting the purchasing power, everybody will ask, Labour, what are you doing? Labour, do something. It's a common saying. And that goes a way to show you how relevant the trade union is in Nigeria.
Workforce, especially gig economy and jobs like that. Do you still have a role as a union? Does Nigerian trade unionism also play a role on these ones who are not either employed by government or private establishments?
Well, you know, we have what we call formal and informal sector. We have what we call formal and informal sector. But generally, the trade union, works from the formal sector. That is the formal sectors where trade union have their membership, where they unionize and organize. But the activities of trade union now go far beyond the informal sector, up to the formal sector, or to go beyond formal sector, sorry. It goes beyond the formal sector to the informal sector. Take, for instance, when we are mobilizing for the increase of fuel, what are we doing? We are doing for the whole masses, it's for the entire masses. It's not just for the formal sector. And those masses comprise those in the village, those in artisans who are not fully unionized. So it takes care of the activity of trade union, takes care of both formal and informal sector. And those in informal sector are not the organized sectors, but they are members of the masses of this country. So the activities of trade union takes care of those in the informal sector.
If you agree with me, it's an increasingly globalized economy. And so I'd like to get from you what the challenges the trade unions face in advocating for workers' rights and welfare, and how the unions should make efforts to strategize in response to traditional away from traditional institutions, that is the regular private and government establishments, multinational, because it cuts across the globe. How do you interfere when issues come up from multinational organizations?
Yeah, in multinational organizations, we have members there. In multinational organizations, they are unionized because they are the formal sector. Now, like I said earlier, we have over 150 trade unions. And these trade unions cut across sectors, health sector, petroleum sector, and so on and so forth. All the industries, we have trade unions. So at any time, and we don't forget we have two congresses in Nigeria, the Trade Union Congress and the Nigerian Labour Congress, where all these unions are affiliated to. For instance, if we are taking the issue of minimum wage cost across the whole country. In fact, by the law of minimum wage, it is even expected that as a small-scale industry, as low as employing 10 to 15 to 20 persons, should implement the minimum wage. In fact, generally, by implication, it's expected that even your gateman and your cooks you have in your house should be enjoying the national minimum wage. So it has already affected the multinational, it has affected the national. The tariff we are talking about, like I said, is both for multinational. Everybody is using a GSM. It's both for the multinational, both for the low-income earners, both for the artisans, and both for the farmers in the village. It affects everybody because the issue of fuel, people use generator, even in the village now. The tariff of electricity, people use light in the village. So whatever the trade union is doing, it costs across, is beyond the members of the trade union. It costs across multinational, small and medium-scale enterprises, informal sectors, and then the general masses, both at the grassroots. So it covers everybody from what we do. So it's not only limited to organized private sector, it's not also limited to public service. It cuts across the citizens, the masses of this country.
Igbokwe, just to get a clearer view, what role do trade unions play in ensuring gender equality in the workplace?
Well, that is one of our major functions, because if you come to every trade union, we have the Women Commission, then we have the gender desk. Gender equality has been canvassed everywhere. That's why in the trade union, there's no discrimination over chairmanship of the union, both at the unit level, what we call the unit level, or the local government level, the state level, or the national level. A woman have the equal opportunity with a man to take over any position at this level. That's number one. Two, in the workplaces, it is also the work of the trade union to ensure that nobody is victimized, nobody is denied because of his or her gender. So the issue of gender, the trade union have taken it seriously. And it is part of what we discussed at our annual conference of International Labour Organization in Geneva. So we do everything to ensure that there is no gender discrimination at the workplace. And we also advocate and canvass that in employment, there should be no discrimination over gender issues. with that. Even we have gone even far to talk about discrimination over disability, discrimination over person living with HIV/AIDS, discrimination over people living with albino, and so on and so forth. That is what the trade union has done or is still doing. Trade union is a liberalized organization where there is no limitation and there is no discrimination to who occupies a position, who plays a role, who becomes a member, and who does what. And we have taken it to the, to the workplaces to canvass that this same issue in what we call gender mainstreaming, to make sure that there is no gender discrimination. There has to be gender equality. And we have also gone out to commend those governors, those head of organizations that's also giving, positions, high positions to women. And we've also, in our training, tried to sensitize the women, try to, build their capacity to know that there's nothing different between a man and a woman. That what a man can do, like the saying goes, a woman can even do better. So that a woman should not look at himself as inferior. We have done that. It's part of our training. We have done it from time to time to let women know in our midst and beyond our midst in the workplaces, to know that they don't have any disadvantage when it comes to promotion, growth in your establishment, and occupying any position.
I don't know, but I am certain that one of the tools the trade unions, the various labor unions adopt is in achieving welfare, better welfare for workers under their purview. And so I'm going to ask, what effective negotiation tactics have you tried in the past and is thriving for negotiations on behalf of workers?
Well, collective bargaining, when you talk about negotiation, it takes us to what we call collective bargaining. Now, in collective, we apply collective bargaining, which is a situation where we sit down with government, with the employer. Let me not just say government. You sit down with labor organizations, labor unions sit with government to discuss issues and then reach an agreement and sign agreement and then follow the implementation so that it will be implemented as agreed. But over the years, we have issues with employer keeping to this agreement. We have issue with employer adhering to this collective bargaining because it's a law. We have law of collective bargaining. We have problem of employers adhering to that. Now, conflict. Before we get to the level of conflict, that's what we call grievance. When a grievance starts, grievance is a stage where people are complaining. We expect the employer at that point to call a meeting, because in trade union we have a practice. Once there is grievance, the next thing is that you put up a mail, a letter addressed to the management, either at the private or public sector. You address to the relevant government or relevant agencies, indicating, drawing the attention of the management of these grievances and requesting the management to call for a meeting so that we can nip these grievances in the bud so that it doesn't escalate to crisis. But what do we see in this country? Most time, the management ignores you, will not even respond to your letter until, because there is a rule and there's a law and there are stages you have to follow. When you write to management and they didn't respond, you continue to write. When you write and write, at the end of the day, You might decide on another way. There's another measure. You can go on rally. Rally is to say, this is what I'm saying. People hear my voice. This is my need. And the management is still not interested in treating it or addressing it. If the rally doesn't work, you can also do what we call picketing. Picketing means you can come to the gates of a particular establishment or a secretariat of government and shut it down and stay there and say, no work today until you listen to us. If after picketing that didn't work, that is when you might come down and follow the legal procedure of issuing ultimatum to government or to the employers, sorry. You do 21 days ultimatum, the employer did not listen. You do 14 days ultimatum, ignored. 14 days ultimatum, and when it expires, when they now hear that you are writing letters or flyers to your members to mobilize to shut down the system, that is when they call you for a meeting. So this is the process we use. Let me let you know, strike is the last option. We don't enjoy strike, even as trade union, because strike is a wind and it blows no one good. Because why? In the process of executing a strike is expensive. That's number one. Strike is also risky. In the process of strike, people might die. For instance, if you're executing a strike and you have to close down a hospital because you're on strike, then those who have patients there, they will have to start moving them to private hospital. And some people don't have money to go to private hospitals. And in the process, some may lose their life. Those who have to come for checkup on their health may not come because you're on strike. Then also, when you are on strike, accident victims might be rushed to the hospital and nobody to attend to them. They will start looking for a private hospital. So these things are the risk of strike. But it is the last option left for trade union in order to raise their voice for the employer to listen to them and at least sit down with them to discuss what is their demand. So those are the strategies we use. And we have always been using it, but let me say it again, strike is the last option. If the employer listens to you at the grievance stage and you discuss and agreement is reached and is implemented, nobody enjoys strike. Nobody wants to go on strike. Even the labor leaders, even the workers, we don't want to go on strike. That is only the last option.
All you're doing to ensure workers' welfare, do you think the organized labor in Nigeria is enjoying trust and confidence from Nigerian workers? Some trade union leaders have been accused of ineptitude. Let's talk about this dispensation where we started with removal of oil subsidy. They agitated to no end. I could remember the days it was 600 and something naira, but today we pay way above that and nothing has happened. We remember the agitation for electricity tariff. We also remember the agitation for the minimum wage. And I know that Nigerian workers are paid 70,000 naira as minimum wage, even when they advocated for hundreds of thousands naira. Do you still think that Nigerian workers have maximum confidence in the trade unions?
Well, for maximum confidence, I cannot guarantee that, because why? You are dealing with a system that are not keeping to their promises. I'll give you an instance. If you have a need in your house and you are still staying with your parents and you have a need and you wake up morning and say, Dad, Mom, I'm not going to eat today, I'm not going to school. I'm not going to do this. I'll not let you people until you provide me with this basic need that I need. And your father and your mother sit you down and say, you know, you are our child. No, 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 we love you. Don't worry. Just give us end of the month. When salary is paid, we'll buy this. What do? Do you still continue to fight? No. But it will be very unfortunate if at the end of the month, the same parents that has gave you their word, their promise, which is supposed to be a bond, now turns back to, renege on their promise. That's what we have in this. We have in the system. A government or an employer will call you and say, "You want to agitate?" And they say, "Okay, no problem. Come, let's discuss." Okay, if we are going to increase this, we're going to provide this. We're going to take, for instance, if we're something, they say we're going to provide CGM buses. We're going to provide this. We're going to provide to cushion the effects. We're going to employ so person. We're going to give average Nigerians so amount of money. We're going to create this scheme. Well, when you sit down on the negotiating table and they bring out these, factors, yes, you also are keen to say, yes, if these things are done the way they have, presented it, definitely will not have problem. And the issue is the economic permutation that is presented on the table. That if this A is done, B is done, our refinery starts working in 3 months, Warri is producing, Kaduna is producing, in the next 6 months, there will be, fuel everywhere to the extent that the price will crash, and that they have gone 80, 60, 70% of it. And they are telling you, and you are thinking as a government that the government is responsible and they are going to do according to what I've told you. That's our predicament. And at that point, definitely you are not going to suffocate the government. Because for every action, there are people that will lose. And in most cases, it's not those in government that will lose. Because even if you close the hospital, I can assure you there are private doctors who come to them and attend to them. If you shut down the transport system, they don't use it. They have their own vehicles. They fly even. So they always have a way to overcome. So sometimes when you are carrying out this action, you also be putting in mind the suffering that average Nigerians, the masses, will go through. That's why sometimes when you start an action, 2, 3 days, 4 days, even the members will start telling you that, this is not there. And you say, okay, government have given us, we have extracted agreement from government that they will do this and do that. At the end of the day, they will not keep to it. And after some time, we reactivate it again. So if you have a responsible government, in other places in this world, in outside world, government keep to their promises. And once you keep to their promises, you don't have this issue of whether the people believe in labor or not. What we need first is to put up the agitation. And there is no agitation we have gone for, and we decided to withdraw without extracting agreement from government. You are aware of that. The issue is after extracting this agreement, what happened? You can see that ASU, since 2009 agreement, to keep it is a problem. And when you continue to shut down the school, who is suffering? How many of them that have their children in the public universities or public tertiary institutions? How many of them? Their children are abroad in private universities. So you now see at a stage that even to the extent you are carrying on action, you are also enjoying the masses. So that is why sometimes people say, labor, you are not doing much. But the same masses will also draw your attention to what they are passing through. So it is a very delicate issue. It is a very delicate issue that we have to trade with caution. That's why sometimes when we push, we relax back. Okay, for instance, you enter a struggle for a month, 2 months in this economy, and no salary, government decide to implement the law of no work, no pay, and an average civil servant did not collect salary for 2 days. You know what it means? The market economy cannot be activated because it's the salary of workers. There are states that is purely public service states. If salary is not paid that month, the whole market, the whole shopping plaza in that state will not function, because it's the salary of workers that activate the economy. People can go and buy and the money will circulate. So you can see the predicament.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.